So, like, maybe nostalgic, maybe you will share a good memory with one of the weirdnesses that I will show you at the beginning. And those of you who are just starting, well, maybe you will learn something new, I hope, or we will just have fun together. And the selection is highly opinionated, because I got to choose the examples. And I made the selection based off level and what was popping up the most in those short videos that I was watching. So I don't know how many of you know this series. Okay, quite some people. Great, this was my favorite series when I was growing up and not watching Hannah Montana at that time. So it's, nice break from brainwashing. Or having fun. So I decided to do something very, very similar today together with you. We will play Mythbusters, JavaScript special. So my role in this presentation will be playing a devil's advocate. I will advocate, or try to advocate, for JavaScript, trying to stand, that it is not weird, while you are the jury. So welcome to your first, or maybe not first, but to your jury duty. And what we will do, I'm so happy that I can see you, because I would like to make raise of hands. You will see the web application, extremely simple, that I prepared for this special occasion. And you will be the ones deciding if the example is weird. So if the weirdness is confirmed, plausible, like, okay, it might be, but it might be not, like, not really sure about, or do we bust the weirdness, the myth of the weirdness of that particular example? And now, let's see what we are standing against. Because I don't think it's possible to just show an example and say that, yeah, this is weird. We have to kind of understand our opponent as well. So let's take a look into some numbers. Because how come that something that is the most commonly used, the most popular client-side programming in the world, with over 99% of all applications using it one way or another, can be weird? Those data are from June this year, but don't worry, that didn't change much, because when I was preparing this presentation, I took, okay, it's for a year back, but the trend is there. It's like stable, right? It crushes all of the, I'm missing the words, competition that it has, sorry. And another interesting fact that I found out when I was getting ready for this presentation was that the JavaScript is actually one of the most rapidly growing server-side programming languages. That quite literally broke my mind a little bit. But yes, it is there, and people are using JavaScript also on the backend side. So how come something this popular is considered by this huge or large group of people weird? I'm not going to answer this question. It's a rhetorical question. You can answer it yourself, or we can chat about it afterwards if you want to. So, favorite part of every presenter, let's dig into the demonstration. So what I prepared for you today is a fancy website. Here on the, it's blinking, isn't it, the screen? I hope it's okay. So, I prepared some code snapshots. Here we have a list, so you get a spoiler alert what we'll be talking about today. And we have a list, code snapshot with some examples that we are going to discuss. And after the voting, when I'm more or less done giving you a short explanation about what's happening here in the code, we will make a voting. And then at the very end, we will see the results. So Are you ready to get started? Cool. Let me just grab a sip of water. Now I'm ready to. Okay. Sorry? I can try, most definitely. Okay. But now, can I move this to the side? That's the question. I need a mouse for that. And someone just said it in the audience. Thank you. And I have also absolutely no space to use this mouse. So that will be fun. Can you? Oh, believe me, I tried that. Oh, wait, it had. Oh, yeah, okay. 2 fingers, but without touching the screen. Never mind, okay, it works. It works now, you can see the snapshot of the code, right? Great. So, there is one more warning that I forgot to put in the presentation. I love bad jokes, bad dad jokes. I try to limit myself, but if something snips, I'm sorry. And there is a first thing that snipped. It's a type correction. Because, well, JavaScript loves correcting our types, right? So what we will try and see here. First, we will try to add a number to a string, then subtract a number from a string. And last but not least, we will add 2 Boolean values. Lovely. Let's see the results. Interesting, isn't it? Yes. Actually, this is something that I encountered in one of my first JavaScript projects. The first example here. I was unsure of the type that was returned from the backend. I made it any. Yeah, it was nice. Good old times. So yeah, what JavaScript is doing, it's a loosely typed language, right? So we don't have any strict types like we do in .NET or Java, for example. So it automatically converts the type whenever it is necessary. And this is exactly what's happening here. The type number, so 1 that we see as a number, JavaScript converts it into string, simply because of the rule and how it's designed, is that if one of the arguments in a mathematical equation is a string, everything else will be converted to string. But that's only about addition. So this, what we see here in JavaScript translator, it's not a plus, it's a concatenate. So we get a string plus string, which gives us string 12. Here, it's a subtraction. So the rule that I was saying before, that it tries to convert, it actually tries to convert it to numbers right now, because the exception is only for the plus sign. So we get 2, which becomes a number, and 2 minus 1 is 1. Now the cool part is true. Yes, true is being translated into ones, because in mathematical equations, it tries to map whatever type it sees into a number, with the exception of the plus that I stated earlier. Cool. So this is about it, what I had to explain for the JavaScript. Let's try and do this voting thing. And skip the fact that the layout is breaking. It doesn't happen. Let's pretend it's not there. So, do you think that this is a weird behavior of JavaScript? Raise of hands, please. Okay, who of you think that it's okay? I get the idea behind this. Okay, and who thinks that it's okay? It's normal. Okay, I'm sorry for you guys, but but you lost. This one, actually, the most people confirmed that this is weird. Okay, first done, 8 more to go. Let me check the time. Okay, it's actually not that bad. Now let's move to not numbers. What we will check here is actually a type of not a number. And we will try to see if one not a number is equal to another not a number. Fairly reasonable, I think, to see and check. So what do we get? Type of not a number is a number. Thank you, logic. And one not a number is not equal to another not a number. Thank you, logic, again. But actually, when you think of it, I will explain that it makes sense. So the first one, let's look into type of not a number. Well, there are actually several reasons that come up to mind when we are talking about it. First is standardization. We have to stay compliant with the standard, and there is this IEEE or IEEE 754 standard that is about representing floating point number. And it says it defines not a number as a special value that indicates undefined or unrepresentable results of a floating point calculation. And so in this context, not a number is a valid member of a number type, even though it represents an invalid result or an invalid number. It helps, in JavaScript, it's also a way of keeping the data consistency, right? Because if not a number were to be of a different type, let's say undefined, because, well, I used the word undefined before, so why cannot it be undefined? But the paradox is that it would have introduced way much more misconception or confusion around this whole thing. Another thing is that allows the mathematical operations to just continue, and it gives an easy-ish way for us developers to handle those kind of exceptions. And not a number not being equal to not a number, when I'm thinking about a language, it makes absolutely no sense because, well, they are the same. But then the thing is that we have to come back to the standardization again. I love this name. Highlights that even though we see the same kind of value over here, we don't know the context that yield us to this value, right? So this first not a number can be the result of dividing by 0, while the second not a number can be the result of taking the square root of -1, right? So there is also a logical problem that we might encounter. So that in JavaScript it is designed that not a number is not equal to anything, including itself. Lovely. That's all I had to say about this. Now, voting. Okay, one person's vote. Okay, so how many of you think that this is actually weird? Okay. Oh, how about plausible? Like, maybe. Okay, this is more. And not weird completely? There was slightly, not much, more people saying that this was plausible. I could count your hands, but there are so many of you that it would take way too much time that we have for this presentation. Another one example. This is also something that I encountered, I faced against in my early days, is the two ways that we have to check equality. Right? So, examples. 0 is equal to false. 0 is equal to false. Empty string equals 0. An empty string equals 0. Yeah, with those different double and triple equality signs. Well, let's see how that goes. And what do we get in here? Yes, so 0 is equal false, but it's not equal false. And empty string equals 0, but it does not equal 0. Yeah. So the difference here, and this is my advocate right now talking, is that we have loose and strict equality in JavaScript. So loosely typed language, so that we have two ways. First, loose equality, it compares value, but it tries to map the type to make it a common one. So in this case, false will become 0, as we were talking in the very first example, right? It will try to make it a number. But in the strict equality, it compares also the type. So it's false, because, well, this is a number, this is a Boolean. Makes no sense. And the same thing is happening over here. And this is actually, I remember one of my first times when I faced, again, just JavaScript, and then I started thinking, then why do we even have those loose equality? My lucky guess with one thing is that we have to stay backwards compliant. So with the older versions of JavaScript, it has to work together. But then what can be the cases that you could actually want to use the loose equality? And one thing that comes to mind is like validation of the input, or when the variable can be either null or undefined. Just as a side note. This was not my lawyer result talking right now. I'm not a lawyer, by the way. I'm just playing one. So, your turn. Do you think that this behavior is weird? No. Wow, okay. It's only 2 hands, so this is... how about plausible? Like, might it be considered weird? Okay, so, who of you thinks that it really is weird? It's not weird, sorry. Yes, of course. Yes, so our first busted example, yeah. I just realized that I have 9 examples and 3 possibilities. So we can end up in a very cool situation of having 3, 3, 3. But let's see how that goes. Adding objects. Just a side note here, I am going for objects. But you can put exactly the same examples with arrays, and you will get similar results. But yeah, I have restricted amount of time and restricted space. So what do we have here? Notes. Yes, we have 2 objects with one parameter here is name, it was string, and the age. Yeah, that's my age. And we will go back to this a little in a second. So let's try adding object 1 to object 2. And here is another way of doing that properly, but we will try adding it with plus mathematical operator sign, and we will then try assigning, so they use the function that is provided by JavaScript. Let's see the results. So, when we use mathematical operator, we get object, 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 object. I'm still guilty of that. Well, a side note, and the funny story maybe about me, is that I'm debugging front-end with console logs. Not all the time, often. And I sometimes get this result, so it's like, yeah, it's deep, close to my heart very much, this example. So, what is happening here? Again, we are facing type coercion. And I did not say that at the first example, because what's happening and what JavaScript is doing, it's not type correction, it's type coercion. So the adjusting values, that's the proper naming that I should be using in a type presentation. I hope that you will forgive me for that. So it's, again, trying to, like, it's not dealing well in this context with complex objects and arrays. Bless you. So it's trying to map them to something easier that it understands, and, well, unfortunately, it maps it to a string. And this is usually what happens. The same thing is happening with arrays, and the results are even weirder with arrays. So the proper way to handling it would be using assign object. And just to prove I'm wrong, that's correct, is that when I assign object 1 to object 2, I get actually 2 properties in one object. and the type is object. Thank you very much. That's everything I had to say about it. So how many of you think that this is weird behavior of JavaScript? 3 people. How many think that it's somehow weird, but then I also can understand? Okay. How many of you think that this is not weird at all and can bust this myth? Cool. So this one is definitely busted. And we will have a very similar example when it comes to, I'm sorry, I have to take a sip. When it comes to comparing objects. So again, we have 3 objects this time. Object 1, 1 property string, object 2, 1 property string, and object 3 equals object 1. And we will try and see if object 1, so this one, equals object 2, strictly equals, and if object 1 strictly equals object 3. And that's important that we are checking the strict equality here. Turns out that object 1 and object does not equal object 2. Okay. But object 1 equals object 3. Okay. So now, why does it happen? Well, arrays and objects, which are the topic of this slide, are reference types in JavaScript, which means that that we are not comparing the values, we're actually comparing the reference. So, object 1 and object 2 are not equal because, well, they are in 2 separate places in the memory. But object 1 is equal to object 3 because object 3 points into the same place in the memory that object 1 does. And there is, unfortunately, no built-in way of comparing objects and arrays. You can use libraries. There are big chances that you will find something, or provide some function or mechanism on your own, of your own. Yes, that's everything I had for explaining JavaScript for you. So how many of you think that this is not weird? Not weird? Yes. Okay, I'm not even asking more, sorry. The majority have spoken. Let's move on. Let me see if we have some more time. Okay, we have still some minutes left. We will look into assigning values right now. So again, naming could be better, Gosia could name it better, but okay. Value 1 is actually an object with 1 property, and value 2 points to the value 1. And what we are trying to do is to change the name, but only on the value number 2. So what will happen to the object, the first object, the original one that we have? Any guesses? Yes. It also changes. And actually, there is not much more I could say here about it because I said majority at the beginning, right? Objects, arrays, reference types, same. They are actually, those two are the same objects. Yes. So, not weird? Okay. So I'm not asking further because, again, you have just spoken. Null and undefined. Again. That's it. Yeah, okay. I must have some left over here. Sorry, I just realized that. Even though I was saying this before, I don't know why I haven't seen that. I mean, I was showing that before several times. Never mind. Let's move on. So, we will check type of null, check type of undefined. We will see if null loosely or strictly equals undefined, and if we can add something to a null. Yes, this is what we will do now. Okay, that's a lot, so let's take it step by step. Type of null is an object. And this is actually a bug in JavaScript, so I'm sorry. I don't have a big explanation for that. It comes from early days when JavaScript was created. And it stayed there because of the backwards capability. They had to stay compliant with the older versions. Okay, not good. Don't touch the wires here. That's a noted thing. Well, we are busting right now this myth. So let's see. We still have some more to do, but God, please have mercy over us here. Type of undefined is undefined, which makes sense. I think. I shouldn't be sharing my opinions here at this stage. But null is loosely equal to undefined, but not strictly equal to undefined. And this, we kind of explained that before, right? Because of they are different types. Well, naturally, they will not be strictly equal because of the differences in the type. However, this I find pretty interesting because you can add something to a null, but you cannot make mathematical operations on undefined. Why is that? Because null symbolizes a lack of value, right? Like this is, let's say, designed that it can have value. So in mathematical arithmetical operations, it translates to 0. While undefined, it means that variable or something was initialized, but never got assigned a value. And that's why we cannot proceed with any mathematical operations on this one. Yeah, and this can be confusing, especially when you are handling variables that are not properly initialized. Okay, so let's start from the other way. Let's mix things up. How many of you think that this is weird? A lot. Oh, that will be interesting. How many of you think that it might be weird? Like, okay, I can agree with that. Okay. How many of you think that it's not weird at all, that this is normal? Actually, we are hand in hand with plausible and confirmed. I'm sorry for the busters. But I believe that it was slightly more people saying that this is a confirmed weirdness. Two lasts, and we have... Okay, we are very good with time, I think, here. The automatic semicolon insertion. Automatic semicolon insertion, yeah. We will just take a look at one example that is the most common one, according to Google. What will be the return type of this function? And this is a very simple function that should return an object with one property. Let's see how that goes. Sorry, I lost it. Okay. Let's see how that goes. I'm returning an object, don't I? And here, it's undefined. Well, it is, because the curly braces is in the other line. So JavaScript thinks that, okay, this is the end of your return statement. Let's put a semicolon over here. Yeah, it's meant to help developers. It's meant to help people, right? To make it more intuitive and more, what's the word? Again, I want to say something. Forgiving. More forgiving for developers. Well, it's not. So then, how many of you think that this is weird? Okay, I'm not even asking further, sorry. It's like everyone agrees. And my favorite one that I actually learned about when I was preparing this presentation, we have two functions. both have 3 parameters, yes, A, B, C. Difference is that function number 2 has this default value over B. And functions in JavaScript, they have a length property. So we can check the length of the function. I was very confused when I saw that at first, but yeah, let's see what's the length of those 2 functions. Why not, right? So the function number 1 length is 3, while function number 2 has a length of 1. Yeah, me too, believe me. Why is that? The length actually returns the number of the parameters in the function. Yeah, but now, why the difference, right? It returns like there are there is a list of why does it happen and why is it like that. But in this case, is that it returns the number of values, of parameters, before the first default value is present. Makes sense, doesn't it? And I was trying to find a good explanation for that. I really tried, but in this case, I am failing as JavaScript's lawyer. Sorry. I'm sorry, JavaScript. So let's vote. How many of you think that this is weird? I'm not going to ask further, sorry. Yeah. So this brings us to the summary and the results. Of course, we ended up in a situation that I very much did not want to end up. Yeah, so this is what we're getting, right? It's weird and it's not weird. I think that what we did here is just confirming that it's up to a person, really. And it's up to what someone believes that is weird or is not weird. But if I were to get 1 vote, I would add it here and say that JavaScript is weird, really. Okay, I still have a few last minutes, and I would like to spend them on closing statements. There are some things that makes JavaScript weird, because we just confirmed that it's weird, right? With my extra vote. No, I'm just kidding. Well, we have to remember that JavaScript was initially created in 10 days. So the time to production was extremely short. And it kept growing and growing. So I guess that those of you who remember the early days of JavaScript, from there to now, we made a huge progress anyways. So there are some inconsistencies, some unexpected behaviors, but come on, 10 days. So why the complaining is happening? I believe that there are several reasons for that. One, as I said, subjective reasons, right? And we even saw here that even though the vast majority of you said that it is a confirmed weirdness, well, it wasn't like 100%. And I guess that maybe 50% of those who didn't raise their hand were just shy or did not listen. That happens. I understand it completely. But the other 50% of that few people might have thought that, well, this is not weird at all, and this is okay. Lack of knowledge, and I don't want to sound braggy here. I don't want it to come off badly, but I believe that at least some of those examples were not weird when you understand what's actually happening behind the scenes. And following the crowd might be the other reason, right? Because people say that this is weird, so this must be weird, right? Sometimes, but not all the time. And something that I started with, which is online content, right? There is really a lot of those short moves and probably whole videos on YouTube that are telling you that this is weird, that JavaScript is weird. So yes, so it must be. Thank you very much for attending this presentation. I hope you liked it. Thank you.